In nature, there exists a 26 million electron volt or electrostatic wall science calls the Coulomb barrier that repels the nuclei of other particles at very close distances so they do not fuse together. However, for certain chemical reactions to occur, the nuclei must share individual particles that must overcome the barrier. That said, it takes tens of billions of degrees to overcome the Coulomb barrier for particles to fuse into elements and make the physical world we live in. So the 26 million electron volt wall seems almost insurmountable. However, scientists believe that nature uses the quantum tunneling process we discussed to overcome the barrier. Scientists also believe our own sun uses quantum tunneling in the fusion process. When two particles meet, their waves take every possible path before popping into existence and occasionally penetrate the Coulomb barrier. Remember, everything in the universe is made from energy waves, even the Coulomb barrier. So the particle waves tunnel through, allowing the chemical process to fuse life together as we know it, including your consciousness. In fact, quantum tunneling provides a continuous supply of energy waves expanding to interact with the external environment, supporting chemistry and biological processes. This means even your mind, being made from energy and mass, has barriers throughout its structure and are penetrated and bound together into one continuous conscious system using quantum tunneling. Let me restate that. If quantum tunneling were not occurring every moment of your life, your consciousness and life as we know it would not exist. Of note, it can take a millionth of a second or billions of years to quantum tunnel through barriers. So life itself is absolutely magical. In the story of the woman needing healing, she quantum tunneled her desires to touch the great healer, engendering the response, "Who touched me?" although he was being pressed by the crowd from all sides. The woman's shock waves quantum tunneled to touch the great physician because her emotions reached critical mass, causing possibility or probability wave detonation to propel her desires, resulting in virtue being released from the great physician. Otherwise said, virtue reflected back from the great physician, which quantum tunneled and added energy and mass to the woman's wave field, and her internal, healthy, and emotional pristine images she held caused immediate health. Let me make a crucial point regarding mass and energy. When you add energy or velocity to mass, it becomes heavier. So, the woman's pristine image obtained enough mass and velocity from the great physician to become heavy enough to impact reality and cause immediate health. We now understand the pressure generated by consciousness during highly charged emotional moments are so powerful at times because actually it is a mental shock wave manifesting in response to the event. When put into the context of quantum tunneling, emotional events produce pressure or shock waves to initiate detonation by insulting the particle's possibility or probability waves in the field around the nucleus. These detonated possibility or probability waves create a firing train that finally executes the quantum tunneling process. Then insult the corresponding wave fields to generate the three-dimensional subatomic particles and image we perceive as physical reality. Think of the 24 wave fields as the main explosive charge that must be impacted to create three-dimensional life. This is a crucial point, so let me restate it again. For humans, emotions are that pristine image within consciousness that can rapidly expand as mass and energy and, in effect, detonate the particle possibility or probability waves around the nucleus, thus with enough energy to drive quantum tunneling. And yes, emotions are an image within the mind. Most of us do not produce enough directed emotional energy to generate the conscious shock waves needed for detonation, quantum tunneling, and additional mass. Emotions are one of the most powerful pictures or pristine images we encounter in our lives. To that end, another significant point is that life does not consist of just one pristine image. For enhanced effect, the immortal scientist creates compound pristine images, meaning holding an image of a particular emotion, however, combining it with the pristine image of health and youth. The emotional image is the driver for the initial shockwave, while the additional pristine images serve as a booster in the explosive conscious firing train to properly direct emotional detonation. Of note, even regular thought processes must address the electron-volt barrier to create an image. When we see an image in our minds, the quantum tunneling process must occur to combine the constituents of a specific picture for it to exist. Something to consider is that if you continuously combine numerous negative pristine images, the shockwaves can have a detrimental impact on one's psychological makeup. We haphazardly use emotions every day. It is now time to learn to direct them for mankind's benefit. Further to that point, the compound pristine images of emotions, youth, and health together increase mass, which generates increased microgravity that bends the fabric of space to assist in guiding the returning shock waves to collapse them and form the reality you desire. The woman's emotional act of knowing was not an unsupported blind faith exercise, which cannot guide energy waves. Blind faith haphazardly directs the quantum tunneling shock waves, thus leads to ineffective results. If blind faith is left unchecked by natural barriers within nature, it would guide physical reality into oblivion. The highest form of thought is being aligned with true reality, meaning the consistent eternal laws of physics, holding the pristine image and knowing that the laws of physics work regardless of personal belief completes the mind's circuitry for canceling fear and doubt. One can perpetuate eternal youth and health if so desired. Of note, shockwaves, although important, are only but one component of the insult process, and we will address the other techniques in the upcoming empirical mental experiment. We will now fuse the kinetic techniques immortal scientists use, such as compound pristine images, quantum tunneling, and explosive shock waves, with other mental engineering to perform empirical experiments one can use to address real-world issues that impact our lives daily. The immortal scientist uses all knowledge of the physics involved to capture more wave energy and mass to meet our demands. If you dig a hole in front of an aircraft, even weighing 400,000 pounds, it will roll into the hole. That is just simple physics. By digging the hole, what you have just done is to restructure the universe so that gravity, even from the furthest reaches of space, assisted in moving that airplane into the hole. Otherwise expressed, creating a void or hole also serves as a negative insult to the 24 wave fields. No matter where in the universe, when a hole is created, energy will expand into it, and this also includes your mental processes. One can have all the faith in the world. However, with fear at its center, your power to believe is drained away and hollowed out. Our thoughts, being made from wave energy, there are also frequency-based holes, such as imagining the color red with a yellow or black dot at its center, which can cancel each other out under the right conditions to create voids. So, if you think a thought that creates a void, even imagining a deep hole, energy will flow in that direction within the mind. It's just simple physics. The immortal scientist knows mental holes are real and uses this knowledge to guide, capture, and bind energy together. The technique of using a mental hole to bind energy together is referred to as energy gravity weaves, and the mental physics is actually quite easy to execute. The immortal scientist not only imagines and feels a hole in the mind, but an elongated hole, meaning the deeper the hole, the more energy that can be stored. However, if you want to bind that energy to stay in place, one imagines two elongated holes weaved together, not unlike DNA you see in nature. This action binds the mental energy flow into a weaved structure. Actually, these are also pristine images. However, do the opposite of shock waves. They insult the wave fields by capturing shock waves. Science may recognize this as a form of gravity, except mentally produced. In your mind, create compound pristine images which include a shock wave of emotional desire, the DNA, gravity weaves, and the pictures of health and youth. When these mental images are fused within the mind, it provides exponential amounts of energy to initiate the quantum tunneling and mental explosive firing train process. These compound pristine images yield more mass to impress the fabric of space, creating more gravity. When energy gravity waves or holes are incorporated into pristine images, it will expedite health, as energy is being drawn in and bound together within the mental vision, meaning it will not immediately dissipate, thus feeding the remaining pristine images. One can see how these techniques support each other. It is important to know these mental engineering techniques do not require belief, as physics is not based on belief, but the immutable laws of physics inherent in the Creator's processes. Now, we will add affirmations and the duality principle techniques to the pristine images. Affirmations are repeated thoughts to focus the mind for a desired outcome. Immortal scientists view affirmations from a physics perspective, meaning thoughts have mass because they are made from energy bound together by nuclear forces. So, repeated affirmations are really the mind bending the space-time fabric to create more gravity, which captures more energy, which then adds mass and then adds more energy. You get the picture. However, the immortal scientist also implements the duality technique to eliminate single points of failure during affirmations and to exponentially add mass. Exactly what do I mean? Usually, when someone performs an affirmation, they only imagine one thought moving through space and time. So, if an opposing thought occurs, it disrupts the energy of the single original thought. For example, if one thinks of the thought love and then hate, their energy and gravity will cancel each other out over space and time. To address this issue, we look to science, which has found that when two particles move through space and time together, zero resistance is created around them. Like a couple with a great supportive relationship, they can flow effortlessly in their environments. Immortal scientists refer to this law of physics as the duality principle when applied to mental processes, which, by the way, is also referenced in ancient texts as group prayer, when more than one are gathered together. The immortal scientist creates an equivalent grouped thought or meditation in their minds to acquire the same effect. You must imagine, for example, the thought of love or your affirmation in more than one location within the mind, which eliminates the single point of failure. Now apply the practice to all of the pristine images, including your emotions. Remember, this is like subatomic particles, DNA, or even cellular structure being repeated exactly throughout the body, with only slight variations to address a particular task for that particular space, time, location. The immortal scientists also understand that sound, being part of the affirmation, is an image made of frequencies and also serves as a driver during the conscious explosive firing train process. As you hold the duality pristine images of emotions, health, youth, energy gravity waves, the sound will assist in meeting the detonation shockwave requirements. Remember, sound was there in the beginning during the Big Bang detonation. Now, let's finish the empirical mental experiment together. Within your mind, choose a health target you would like to manifest. Now, please listen closely. Hold an emotion of only accepting that desire for that target, and then hold duality pristine images of that target, not the old image, but the pure new image. Next, imagine the energy waves or holes are interlaced throughout the target picture you are imagining. This allows the fabric of space to fold into your pristine image. Finally, in two separate locations within the mind, repeat an affirmation to help drive the new image into existence. Keep holding the duality pristine images and affirmations and test for empirical results through observation. Of note, these combined techniques work well for nerve-related issues such as backaches or neck pain. Also, they are extremely effective at eliminating simple viruses. If you have health issues, do not just accept them. Put the mental technology to work, even for the slightest of concerns. As you practice these mental engineering and physics techniques, remember, the human body at the subatomic particle level pops in and out of existence 3 billion times per second. So you have ample opportunity to impact the wave field as it reconstructs reality. Also, it is critical you know belief is not involved, as physics automatically occurs. One must only follow the rules to produce kinetic thought. We have covered a lot of knowledge in our time together. As you apply the mental engineering, over time, you will make more connections and wisdom will be garnered. You will be able to produce kinetic thoughts and create extreme mind over matter. Together, we will learn from each other and hasten the day when all mankind uses the laws of physics to free their minds. In closing, always remember, only your thoughts separate you from the universe, the Creator, and eternity.